Welcome to Monstober Werewolves with Amber Stone Draws. Today we're going to look at the 2002 movie Dog Soldiers, a Scottish werewolf movie set in Scotland. This thing is full of accents I can't understand 25% of the time, a bunch of character names I can't be arsed to remember, and a lead that I don't particularly like. Some dated and somewhat silly effects during certain parts, and some grainy-ass footage during the outside night shots that were clearly shot during the day and filtered. And yet, this movie, this love letter to werewolf movies, this may not be the best werewolf movie, standing in the shadow of an American Werewolf in London and The Howling, but it is damn sure my favorite. Now, what goes into declaring this movie a favorite? For that, we look back at a 2000, maybe 2001 issue of Fangoria magazine. Down in the corner of the cover, there was a tiny picture of the most badass werewolf I had ever seen. I was immediately on board. I picked it up and flipped to the article. It was a Sci-Fi Channel original picture. Oh no. Disappointment flooded me that this bastion of werewolfdom would be relegated to the likes of How to Make a Movie Monster and Teenage Caveman. And yes, I've since found out that those are Cinemax original movies, but they were around the same time and I've somehow gotten them inextricably linked in my head, and I swear we saw them on the Sci-Fi Channel. There's just no way none of us had Cinemax. At any rate, it being a sci-fi original picture was like a blow. Flipping to the article, the pictures only made me more disappointed. Seeing that it was Scottish gave me a little bit of hope, like maybe they were just gonna buy it and they weren't actually in charge of writing it and producing it. But I wrote it off. As time wore on, little more was said about it and it stretched into years. Then finally, hope again. It wasn't made by Sci-Fi. Even if it was billed as a Sci-Fi original, it was just sold to them or something. This movie is about a military training exercise that goes very wrong. They don't even have real bullets for their guns because they aren't meant to actually kill anything. It's a night of getting to know our characters. Sarge, who's just my favorite bastard, and Neil Marshall will use him in other movies as well. Spoon, a background character who's kind of skinny and adorable, and everyone else who I can't remember, and I just watched this 2 days ago. But just for the sake of clarity, I looked it up and the main guy's name is Cooper. They talk about the football game they're missing to be here in the middle of nowhere, freezing their balls off. They joke. You like this team. Then someone throws a dead cow at them. This is the first time a horror element is used to punctuate the movie. Daylight eventually comes, and they eventually come across the other team in the training exercise. That team has been utterly destroyed. Dead bodies everywhere. Well, except for the dickbag commander Ryan. Look, I remembered his name. They figure out that this team got live ammunition, and their team was bait. But bait for what? Like all the best werewolf movies, in my opinion, this one starts out as another movie. Sure, it ramps up into werewolf pretty fast, but An American Werewolf in London is about an American backpacker maybe suffering from delusions and PTSD. The Howling's about a serial killer. Late Phases is about a guy moving to a retirement community. This one is about a military team, and it stays about a military team. Shots of the werewolves are kept short and in shadow for the first encounters. While they have really cool shapes, you're kind of disappointed that you don't get to see them. And so, like, at this point, you think that this is just a normal werewolf movie. But our boys are picked up by a woman who thinks that they're here to rescue her, and she drives them as fast as she can to an isolated farmhouse where they barricade themselves inside and tend to their wounded. Of course, the werewolves find them, and this is where the movie really shines. We see our first glimpses of the costumes, and they are things of beauty. These werewolves are thin and towering. Their heads are incredible. If that were all this movie had to recommend itself, it would still be in my top 10 werewolf movies. These costumes are just that good. The writing is fun and punchy. The horror scenes, like when they go out to find one of their own after he's been taken, are just so bloody. So bloody! Like a literal kiddie pool full of blood. It's incredibly satisfying to see a group of trained soldiers take on a bunch of werewolves armed with, yes, some guns that they got from the 2nd Military Camp. But that soon, runs out, and then they're mostly using things like pots of boiling water, pans, boards, hammers, even an old-fashioned flash camera. You know, like the 70s-ish ones that had the giant flash attachment and the high-pitched whine between shots. though I do call foul because those need way more time in between flashes to reset. But Spoon and the Sergeant have some of the best lines in the movie, and a scene between the Sarge and Cooper, the main character, leads to one of the best things ever about being a werewolf and holding off the change during a full moon. Like, maybe it's like when you need to take a piss or something. I don't know, when you gotta go, you gotta go. And then Cooper replies, yeah, well maybe it's more like needing a shite. Just because you need one doesn't mean you drop your kegs and pinch one off. I always kind of love that. This movie combines humor, some ingenious costumes, like seriously, the best werewolves I've ever seen. Some great staging and sets, along with some great characters and character actors, even if the lead seems to have a giant stick up his ass. This movie deserves its place among the werewolf greats. Director Neil Marshall earned my trust with this one, and freaking cemented it with his next movie, The Descent, another of my all-time favorite horror movies. Like I said, this movie totally deserves its place in the werewolf pantheon. I mean, look at these werewolves. Look at them. They're amazing. And this movie's almost 20 years old now. At the turn of the century, CG was getting such wide use that any movie coming out was CG'd to the gills. And then this practical ambrosia falls into our lap with some of the best practical werewolf shots of like ever. I hope like hell that this film inspired so many others to go practical in the decades that came after it. I hope it continues to inspire others to try and find ways to do things in reality rather than CG. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's on Prime for free right now, and maybe Vudu too, but if you're a werewolf fan and you haven't seen this one, seriously, just buy it. There's a new edition out that you can find pretty easily. Just buy it. I hope you guys enjoyed my look at Dog Soldiers. You were probably hoping for something that was less effusive gushing and more actual review, but that's what I got in me today. You knew I had to hit an unadulterated favorite at some point, and I don't think I've gushed enough about any of these movies. I mean, at this point, you're probably like, why the hell does she like werewolf movies so much? All she does is bitch about them. Alright, so there is one werewolf left for tomorrow, and I bet you guys probably know who it is. I saved my second and first favorites for last. Don't forget, you still have time to join my Patreon for October. Tome of Darkness level patrons will get a set of Halotines, which you can also use for Valentine's Day if you don't get them soon enough, which you won't. And you can be entered into a drawing for your favorite werewolf painting. And I'm really hoping you guys like this last one. But I'll see you guys next time where we wind down this Monstober. Have a great day. Bye.